Let's chant the mystical syllable Om 7 times. In exactly the same way that the tiniest quark of DNA has within it the intelligence to somehow manifest a body. This mystical syllable Om has within it the intelligence to manifest infinite universes. Your body is an interdimensional portal. Creation, there is no musical instrument in creation more capable for entering this portal than the vehicle of sound and your own voice, your own consciousness expressing itself through voice. And so we invite you to chant this mystical syllable as an instrument for consciously accelerating your evolution. So the focus of this is concentrating at your third eye or in your heart. Your body is a cathedral of the spirit. Your heart is the sanctum sanctorum of this cathedral. And as we chant this mystical syllable Om 7 times, we want to really focus on resonance at the third eye to activate the sphenoid suture and the other cranial sutures. So we're going to chant Ah, O, this is Om is in the Sanskrit language, which is a psychoactive language. A language creates the states of consciousness, and the language parallels the energetic dynamics that allow consciousness to take form. So when we chant Ah, O, M, we are creating, we are cultivating, we are tuning into, we are manifesting unitive consciousness. So since we live in a tuniverse and things are musical, we're going to be chanting the mystical syllable Om 7 times, Ah, O, really playing with the sound as we focus on our third eye. Together. Breath. Last time. We dedicate our efforts to a vision of a springtime of humanity, where all humanity makes a leap in consciousness and realizes the unity and divinity of all life, where we cherish our Mother Earth as our own mother, where we share with each other as brothers and sisters. So be it. My name is Bruce Berger, B-U-R-G-E-R, like Veggie Burger, and it's my honor and blessing to welcome you to this webinar. I hope it's working and that you can hear me okay. I had a little trouble with the software I was attempting to use, so it's just my hope that there's somebody out there and that you found your way to this and that it's working okay. So I'm just talking to the screen to the monitor on my computer, and there actually is someone out there who I'm sharing this work with. Now, the work that I share, first of all, I'm only going to be talking about one thing today and throughout this series, and that is the sacredness and unity of all life. So that's whatever I'm saying, it takes us back to this one realization, the divinity and the unity of all life, the divinity of your life. Everything that we're doing here is based on that realization, and will take us back to that realization and will support that realization. So with that in mind, let me offer a couple of caveats. First of all, we must realize that neither scientist nor sage really knows what anything is, who we are, what we're made of, where we came from, or what we're doing here. The great and wondrous mystery that we are, that anything is, and as long as we approach this with a certain element of humility, I think we can have a productive dialogue. So anything I say, I offer no authority other than my own sincere quest for self-knowledge and for trying to figure out what's going on in this gift that we call life. Secondly, I'll be drawing from the wisdom of ancient India, a body of work which is said to be offer a way of life. And this way of life is called the Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana means prior to time, older than time itself. That this wisdom claims to be older than this creation. And Dharma is not something you find in a book or in a set of rules. You can experience Dharma, that you're experiencing, that you're practicing Dharma when you experience the inherent sacredness of life. So the Sanatana Dharma is a way of life that promotes the experience of health, which is an ecstatic, sacred experience, the experience of worship, which is an ecstatic, sacred experience, the experience of knowledge, which can be an ecstatic and sacred experience. That Dharma happens when we're in loving service, when we're just in the way we care for the people around us, the way we care for nature, the way we care for all these gifts of life, that there's an inherent sacredness in the gesture of kindness and respect and caring. There's an inherent sacredness in living life and letting it flow through us in joy and creativity and expansion. So you will know you are practicing Dharma because you experience this sacredness that's inherent in life. So the Sanatana Dharma is an ancient body of wisdom. Rather, it's an ancient way of life that when we practice it, we can experience the inherent sacredness of life. Now, I must say, I offer you my own relationship to this body of wisdom. I did not grow up in the culture. I do not speak any of the languages. So anything I say, anything I share takes place against a great horizon of ignorance. So many of you will know things that I don't know and can only add to this, and I respect that. So please, if what I'm saying is a little different than the way you understand it, please understand I offer my realization and my point of view with a deep respect for how unique and how individual each of our experience of the mystery is, how unique and how individual each of our journey in life is. So anything I offer in a spirit of a deep respect for your journey, for your vocabulary, for your fabric of experience. Um, Now, when we start to talk about the divinity and unity of all life, it's really important to spend some time demystifying spirituality and talking about spiritual glamour. Because in the West, we have been literally the dominant paradigm in the West has been imposed upon our consciousness for thousands of years. And it's a dominant paradigm which denies the sacredness of the earth, which denies the sacredness of life. And in the West, we are immersed in a deist paradigm. In a deist paradigm, God lies outside of creation, creates the world, and lets it go to hell. So the world is simply material. The first child of deism is science, that tells you that the world is material. And deism, deism and its child science grow up in this atmosphere of thousands of years of inquisitions and thousands of years of persecution and witch burning, in which anyone who attempted to honor the earth was persecuted in the most consistent and draconian and perverse way by the biblical religions, by the monotheistic religions, which demanded worship of an abstract philosophical concept and promised some sort of pie in the sky heaven at the same time that it attacked the sacred of the earth and just ripped the sacred out of the womb of Mother Nature and ripped the sacred out of the womb of the earth. So for most of us, there's a vast fabric of gobbledygook in the concepts that predominate in our Western society, and gobbledygook as we try to translate our own deep personal spiritual experience into the spiritual glamour that predominates in our society. Like most of us have all of these psychedelic concepts of what we're expecting from our spiritualities. We expect the heavens to open up and the Jesus clouds of light to manifest and a hand to reach out from the heavens, et cetera, et cetera. And in my experience, just being in the cathedral of nature is inherently a profound and sacred experience. That loving our children, witnessing nature in any form, witnessing the creatures in nature is charismatic. Charisma means the gift of grace. That any time we tune into the waves and the ocean, the dance of the leaves, the play of the clouds, the warmth of the sun, the sounds of the bubbling brook, it's charismatic. It's filled with grace. But for most of us, we have these spiritual glamorous concepts that that invite us to look for some abstract philosophical or some sort of uh, psychedelic or psychic experience to indicate that something sacred is going on, and we deny the inherent uh, ecstasy of being with the people we love, being in service to the people who we love, being in nature, witnessing nature. So I'm what we call a naive phenomenologist. Naive phenomenology is an epistemology, a way of knowing in which we trust our own experience and trust the wisdom of our own experience as an authority. So naive phenomenology in which we trust the innocence of our own experience and the wisdom of our own direct experience. So I'm inviting you in this work to embrace nature, to embrace your own experience of service, to embrace the ecstasy that you feel after you exercise, the joy of being healthy, the incredible gift that life is. Any questions, you're welcome to use the chat function to type in a question as I continue to rave upon the mystery. Now, recently, I've been getting into the goddess literature, the profound work that begins with Merlin Stone and Starhawk and Maria Gebutis. Because, we live in a culture in the West that is the culture of warlords. The biblical religions are the religions of warlords. The Old Testament demands as a religious duty the persecution, the pillage, the plunder, the rape of the peaceful goddess worshiping, earth worshiping, Gaia worshiping cultures. Jehovah is an angry and jealous God in the Old Testament documents again and again and again and demands. And our culture, again, is, if I think of myself as an American, America's at war in 47 different countries, and the whole economy is probably rooted in war. Not necessarily the same plunder and pillage, but the profits of that same war machine. And that our culture, at this point of perpetual war, we don't even realize that we are immersed in a perpetual warfare. So we turn our consciousness in this moment because there's always an element of freedom in every moment in what we choose to do with our consciousness. So we're always free. And the reason I've gone down this path was to prove for myself that inner peace and equanimity are possible and are available to all of us. As a young man, I was just in constant pain. I was smart ass. I was enjoying life. I was laughing, but there was this great shadow of pain. And I fortunately was drawn to India and the wisdom of India and a journey to self-realization, a realization of the unity and divinity of all life, the divinity of the life in me, which has cured this alienation and cured this pain. So I'm pretty much in a place of equanimity and bliss. But we want to go back to a couple of things here before we get into some of the wisdom of the goddess paradigm. The yoga philosophy, if you ever studied yoga philosophy, they'll tell you that it's based on an ancient philosophy called Sankhya. Sankhya is a Sanskrit term which means to enumerate. And Sankhya enumerates the dynamics of how consciousness sustains the appearance of matter and how consciousness sustains the world that we experience as, quote, real. And if you go back to the Sankhya documents on the very first line of the very first verse. The very first verse says that the purpose of this knowledge is not to get a better job or not the love of learning, but the purpose of this knowledge is the total, the final, the complete, the permanent annihilation of suffering. The Sankhya, this ancient wisdom, which is both the basis of Buddhism and Hinduism, that Sankhya promises the total, the final, the complete, the permanent annihilation of suffering. Now, these are strong words. And so we invite you to dive into this philosophy, questioning it, and to dive into this philosophy experientially, because it's the basis of yoga, and to approve for yourself its efficacy. I know in my own experience, I have the great blessing to have found it to be efficacious. Now, it takes a lifetime, and it takes a passionate commitment to your liberation. But it's available to each of us to experience the total, the final, complete, the permanent annihilation of our suffering. Now, Sankhya claims that the cause of our suffering is a condition of ignorance, but not an ignorance that is an ignorance of any kind of book knowledge, but an ignorance of our own inherent divinity. That this human condition is incredibly vulnerable when we think that we're only this body, only this mind, only this story. That the pain that we're in is the ontological terror, the existential terror of believing that you're only this frail body. And the balm to heal this suffering, which is almost universal in the West, is a self-realization, the realization of your inherent divinity. Now, the beauty of the process of self-realization, or one of the many beauties of this process of self-realization, is intention is everything, and that all roads lead to what is said to be the culmination of human knowledge, the realization of the sacredness of all life and the sacredness of your life. And this light is promised to conquer the darkness of your ignorance. Questions? I hope there are more than 3 people who have actually checked in. You can check in by using the chat on the side. And also, if you have any questions, you can use the chat on the side. I can read your questions and we can go on from there. Now, I promised today that we would practice mantra yoga. And the mantra, it's tricky because I usually, when I approach the artist, the talent, to use one of his mantras, he said, "I'm sorry, but Time India owns the rights to my music, and I can't give you that permission." So we're going to be chanting a very simple mantra. And the mantra we're going to be chanting is Om Namah Shivaya. So here, if you can see that. Oh, no, it's backwards. I'm so sorry. Om Namah Shivaya. AUMNAMAHSHIVAYA. I should have printed it backwards. I'll know better next time. And Om again is the holy word, the ground state, vibrational ground state, which everything emerges. Om. Om is pure, divine, infinite, creative potential. Nama, I used to think that Nama meant to honor, but recently I've read that Nama means all of this is not mine. When we say Om Nama, we're just realizing that all of this is a gift. None of this is mine. My body, my mind, my dharma, the beauty of this creation around me, the pain, the joy, none of this is mine. I guess it's a way of surrendering to the truth that we're immersed in a mystery, we're immersed in a gift. And then Shivaya, the term Shiva means auspicious. Shiva is in the Sanatana Dharma, the wisdom of ancient India. There is an elaborate understanding and dynamic which underlies creation. And many of the forms are personified as gods. And actually, in the huge play of consciousness, are transcendental archetypal beings. You're going to meet people along the way who've met Shiva, who've been in the presence of Shiva, who experienced Shiva in their own consciousness, that the gods are the immortal, transcendental intelligences that are the overlords of our life on earth, and we are the mortal expressions of the same play of consciousness. So Shiva is the personification of the essence of tamas guna. Tamas guna rules the crystallization of consciousness into matter. So in a sense, Shiva rules our ability to experience matter, to experience embodiment, to experience life on this earth. That in a sense, Shiva rules the earth, or actually in another way, Shiva is the earth. Shiva is both is androgynous, is beyond the duality of masculine and feminine. Oh, you can read it. My wife says you can read it. Great. That Shiva is beyond the duality of masculine and feminine. I'll put it up when we're actually chanting. That Shiva is often shown as an androgynous being, beyond the duality. So often you'll get Shiva depicted, half of his body is masculine and half is feminine, as sari with breasts and jewelry. And it's pointing to the fact that Shiva is beyond the duality of masculine and feminine. And Shiva is just so beautiful. So Shiva rules this incredible experience of being in a body, this amazing experience of being in a body, this incredible taste of this delicious life. And Shiva is the word Shiva means auspicious. The word Shiva can also mean that which pervades everything. So we're talking about the life force, the intelligence, the divine mystery that pervades everything and allows it to be. In one of the, okay, we'll just not go down there quite yet. So the quality, Shiva's vehicle is Nandi, the bull. And the beautiful thing about a bull is that a bull is useless. A bull wanders around and eats, occasionally is a sperm donor, but a bull is considered a pretty useless creature. But in any case, Shiva's vehicle is this bull Nandi. And Nandi means peace, that the vehicle for Shiva, the experience of auspiciousness, the experience of the sacred, is peace. That when we're in a peaceful place, what we're experiencing is the auspiciousness of being alive. So Shiva is how delicious your food tastes, how delicious your love tastes, how delicious your eyes see, how delicious your bands are in your ears, how delicious Mother Nature is, how delicious it is to take a shower, how amazing it is to swim, to do your yoga, to plant a tree and watch it grow, to witness a flower, a hummingbird, a bug. Shiva is the ecstasy of witnessing just how really amazing life is, how the incredible spectrum of creatures that we share this life with, incredible spectrum of colors and nature and beauty and magnificence of nature. So your experience of ecstasy as you live in this body is Shiva. So Shiva is nothing that happens outside of you. Well, is transcendent as well as eminent. But Shiva is, you are experiencing Shiva in this morning. So if you're in this moment, so if you're getting off on what I'm saying, you're saying, yeah, you are experiencing Shiva as I am experiencing Shiva, just raving about this gift of life and the wonders of this gift of life. So again, we're talking about a sacred that reveals itself as you're cooking food for the people you love, a sacred that reveals itself as you're sweeping the leaves off the deck, a sacred that reveals itself as you dance, a sacred that reveals itself as you enjoy listening to Bob Dylan, a sacred that reveals itself in every breath and heartbeat as you're present in your experience. So Shiva, Siva in Sanskrit, means auspicious, and it's pointing to the ecstasy of being healthy, the ecstasy of growing and learning, the ecstasy of loving, the ecstasy of learning, the ecstasy of creating, and the ecstasy of being in a body. So many things. So we're going to be chanting Om Namah Shivaya, Om, just calling out to this mystery. And the way we're chanting is we're going to be chanting into the sanctum sanctorum of our hearts with great love. And I'm going to be playing in the background a very slow and meditative chanting of Om Namah Shivaya with a great Indian sage, Baba Muktananda. Mukti means liberation, and Ananda, bliss of liberation. Baba means father. And many of us had the great good fortune to be with him and the ecstasy to be with him and to accelerate our evolution by his wisdom and presence. And so let me tune into that and turn it on, and I'll put this up in front of you. And we're going to chant Om Namah Shivaya for about 15 minutes. Okay, let's go here for a minute and hit play. Again, I'm very limited in the music I can use as a background, because if I use anything that is copywritten, YouTube will shut me down. So it's a little easier for you to find a lovely rendition of Om Namah Shivaya online to chant with if you'd like to chant that way. Of course, it's always valuable to just simply chant this great and mysterious utterance on your own. Any questions? Your questions are welcome. And you are also welcome to check in to let me know that there's somebody out there listening. My favorite, there are infinite names of Shiva, and my favorite is Bolinath, which is the clueless aspect of Shiva, who's uh, simple and easy to please. So, Om Shri Bolinath Maharaj Ki Jai. I wanted to talk a little bit about the goddess tradition because when I talk about toppling the dominant paradigm, the paradigm that promises some abstract philosophical concept of God and invites you or demands that you deny the inherent sacredness of your life, the inherent sacredness of nature, the inherent sacredness that embraces you when you're in the woods. Or when you're doing your yoga practice, or when you're learning or growing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the goddess tradition. You know, we're living in a time where Western history is a history of war, a history of crusades for the last many thousands of years. We live in a time where we believe that war is inevitable. But in the last 5 years, the history of humanity has been rewritten. A sage by the name, a scholar, a sage by the name of Maria Gimbutas, an archaeologist, devoted her life to the archaeology of the last 30 or 35,000 years in old Europe, where there are thousands and thousands and thousands of relics, graves, villages. And before about 4000 BC, villages were not situated for defensibility. They weren't put on cliffs. They didn't have moats. They didn't have fortresses. A house or a village was situated for the beauty of the view or the fertility of the soil around it, but not for defensibility. Defensibility starts happening largely about 4000 BC. And so, and the same way you have all these representations of the spirit, well, all these peaceful representation of goddesses and of forces of nature. You don't in patriarchal society, you have these divine representations, these deities who have swords and weapons and shields, who are gods of war. But for thousands and thousands of years, 30,000 years across what Gimbutas called Old Europe, what you find are what we call Venuses, effigies of nature, effigies of the goddess, us to somehow symbolize this mystery of nature and the mysteries of life and nature, but not effigies of warriors and not male effigies. Gimbutas studies the graves of these people for thousands of years in the Neolithic and the Copper and the Bronze Age, and you see people buried in communal grave sites with very little difference, a little difference in the way people are buried. While with the patriarchy, you see some people, later patriarchy after these invasions, you see some graves with great and ornate and great wealth buried with them, and others nothing. So you see that before this, we don't see the hierarchy and the stratification and the great class differences. So we see 30, it seems like 20 or 30 or 35,000 years of relatively egalitarian, she would say, a mother-focused, peaceful world. And then about 4000 BC, 4400 BC, we see these waves of invasion. There were these pastoral people who lived above the Black Sea in what are called the steppes of Russia and Kazakhstan, above Persia. That these people were herders and pastoralists, and they were meat eaters, and they were big, much bigger than the Europeans. And that they, with their horses and chariots, they would have one fellow drive the chariot and one fellow using the weapons of war. They introduced an invincibility in war, which was unknown before this. And in 4 incursions beginning in 4,400 years BC, they literally wiped out with disease and war a great portions, maybe something like 2/3 of the population of Europe, and imposed their government on it, ruled from the top in a hierarchical, patriarchal structure. So you have like 3 or 4, you have 4 incursions. Now, what's so dramatic is in the last 5 years, DNA evidence is showing that Maria Gimbutas's Kurgan hypothesis is accurate, that it describes our prehistory. And she's somewhat unique because she's the mother of a field of anthropology, which archaeology, which mixes archaeology with folklore. In my lifetime, archaeology was a statistical discipline where they counted artifacts with little understanding of the cultural context that these artifacts was in. So Gimbutas, who grew up in Latvia, redefined largely a great deal of contemporary archaeology into a much more cultural enterprise, which asked the significance of these artifacts as well as the number and the display of them. But in any case, recent DNA evidence has rewritten the history of humanity and tells us that there were thousands, there were tens of thousands of years where humanity lived in peaceful, egalitarian, agricultural society. Now, I'm sure a lot of arguments can be made against this, but if you look at the DNA evidence, this seems to be a primary theme that is well worth our focus and well worth our investigation, as we live in a time where it seems that war and the worldview of the warlords is inevitable. Now, the reason I emphasize this is because the fix that we're in ecologically is because science and the dominant paradigm have lost their sense of the sacredness of nature and the sacredness of life. And we still lived in, let's say, that pre-biblical paradigm where you were immersed in a life of honoring and respecting and serving and participating in loving and respecting and caring for nature as an equal being. We couldn't be in the predatory relationship that we all are in nature, that the kind of eco-catastrophe that we're in is rooted in this misogynist paradigm, this patriarchal paradigm, which for the last 6,000 years have persecuted anyone who has worshipped nature or has attempted to find agency or divinity in nature. So I hope that what we're doing is awakening to just how important, how significant your relationship to nature is. There's a sense where you could really argue that we are zombies, that the worldview that's been imposed upon us has literally put us to sleep, a deep sleep, where we somehow have these concepts, these abstract philosophical concepts of the sacred, and at the same time deny our own phenomenology, our own primary experience of the sacred, that we've been hypnotized, we've gone to sleep, we've been forced to go into sleep, we've been seduced by the misenchantment of this world around us. I want to talk a little bit about the goddess paradigm. This comes from the reclaiming tradition of Wicca and from the sage Starhawk. So I want to read you this beautiful, beautiful statement. It's just the most whole statement of how to live that I know of. The three core principles of the goddess paradigm are immanence, interconnection, and community. Immanence means that the gods are embodied, that we are each a manifestation of a living being of the earth, that nature, culture, and life and all their diversity are sacred. Immanence calls us to live our spirituality here in the world, to take action to preserve the life of the earth, to live with integrity and responsibility. Interconnection is the understanding that all being is interrelated, that we're linked with all of the cosmos as parts of one living organism. What affects one of us affects us all. So interconnection demands from us compassion, the ability to feel with others so strongly that our passion for justice is itself aroused. And the goddess religion is lived in community. Its primary focus is not individual salvation or enlightenment or enrichment, but the growth and transformation that comes through intimate interactions and common struggles. So our liberation is a collective liberation. And community includes not only people, but also the animals, plants, soil, air, water, and energy system that supports our lives. Community is personal, one's closest friends, relatives, and lovers, those to whom we are accountable. But in a time of global communication, catastrophes, and potential violence, community must also be seen as reaching out to include all the earth. So these are the core principles of goddess worship. This is a manifesto. If you go to my website, weareone.us, www.weare, the numeral 1.us, and you click the link to my blog, you will see this in one of my raves under my blog. Also, my Facebook page, you look for Bruce Berger. You will see this as one of my posts. And of course, if you do a search for Starhawk, core principle of the goddess religion, you will also find this profound document. Questions? Bob Campbell says it sounds like the fence started around the Bronze Age. Well, Gimbutas talks about four waves of patrilineal militaristic warlords beginning around 4400 BC. Now, one of the primary focuses of the work that I'm doing is the work that I do in energy medicine. And we take a holistic approach to energy medicine that is rooted in the work of Dr. Randolph Stone's polarity therapy. And polarity therapy is unique as a healing art for the intention to address the soul, the animating intelligence in every life form. Dr. Stone likened the soul to the nucleus of an energy field, that at the nucleus of every atom, molecule, and cell, there is a self-organizing intelligence of life. There is the, And so in polarity therapy, we take a holistic approach to healing based on soul communion, that we do energy balancing, table work, body work, energy-focused body work, to facilitate a direct experience of balanced energy and soul communion and a profound state of well-being where every atom of your body becomes a well to being, where you are in tune with a higher dimension of your own innate divine intelligence. So Dr. Stone, through an amazing series of books, he's considered by many the father of energy medicine in the West, developed this amazing system for releasing trauma from the nervous system and for balancing the body and bringing it back into its natural state of peace and soul communion. We approach this holistically through our energy balancing exercises, that you are a cell in the body of Mother Gaia, and that the quality and range of motion of your joints is a place where energy steps down. Your bones are like really yang on the outside, really concentrated, and they hold this really yin core of marrow that resonates with the plasma that surrounds us. We've taken the cosmos, the plasma, the finest, highest vibrational substance of the universe, and we have it in our core. So these stable bones hold this plasma in the core, which then steps down through the joints. So these ether predominant plasma core steps down through the air as movement through the air predominant joints to the fire predominant muscles, water predominant tendons for expression on the earth. So the fluidity and mobility of our joints is a key to accessing the wholeness that's inherent in this plasma, that's inherent in this universal medium for life. So we have our energy balancing table work. We have our energy exercise, which are exercises. You can find me on YouTube with these simple, easy to learn exercises for joint mobilization and the coherence and integrity of the core. And then we also have, and again, it's illustrated on my website, this incredibly powerful healing diet. And we call it a Vision Quest diet, because the diet has to do with changing the way your body vibrates with your own innate intelligence. And that you can pursue this diet. You can pursue this diet as a vision quest, as a way of coming into communion with a higher state of innate intelligence, that whatever it is that you're facing in life, you can find the vision and inspiration and energy to transcend whatever it is. You don't even have to know what it is. So we have this, it's called a sattvic energy balancing diet. Sattva is the Sanskrit term for being, the force of equilibrium in nature. So in this diet, we only eat sattvic, alkaline forming foods that have your body metabolize the toxic wastes and come into a state of soul communion, which allows the body to potentize its own fields, that within each of us is the self-organizing intelligence of life. I believe that life is God. Gandhi teaches, taught that life is God. We need no God beyond life. Terms like God and heaven are just so toxic. Religion are so toxic these days. So I would like to just simply embrace life as sacred. And so life is a self-organizing intelligence. Life is a great mystery. It's fruitless to try to find its beginning, to find its end. Life itself is unborn, undying, everywhere, always, eternal, forever and ever. And it blossoms through you and I. You and I are flowers and fruit on this great and mysterious tree of eternal life. So we're talking about energy balancing to bring you to facilitate every cell of your body into a well, communing with being and state of peace and inner healing. We're talking about energy balancing exercises that again promote soul communion with your own innate divinity. And then we're talking about a sattvic cleansing diet, uh, which facilitates a profound renewal of body, heart, mind, whatever you got in there. Bring your demons to this sattvic energy balancing diet. So one of the reasons I'm doing this webinar is I offer a 3-week training in Tiruvannamalai in India each January. And I'm hoping some of you hearing me rave about the mystery will say, yeah, I want to visit Mr. Berger's neighborhood there in sacred India. India is one of the few places on earth where imperialism hasn't destroyed the ancient wisdom, where the women carried on this tradition, mother to daughter, mother to son. And like the grass under your feet could not be stomped out by imperialism, could not be stomped out by the Abrahamic religions. And so India is a great place of pilgrimage. Our class is in a place called Tiruvannamalai in South India. South India was never invaded. And so the wisdom there and the way of life is much more coherent and much less chaotic than it is in the north. And we'll be having this class in Tamil Nadu, not too far from Chennai, formerly Madras, the MAA airport, in a city called Tiruvannamalai. And Tiruvannamalai is a place of great, great pilgrimage. And every full moon, millions of people come to circumambulate the holy, holy mountain, Arunachala Shiva. Arunachala means this red mountain. And one of the earliest legends of ancient India, the gods Brahma and Vishnu are rocking the universe, quarreling as to who is the greater god. And the demigods come to Shiva and they say, Shiva, Shiva, we fear the universe will be destroyed. These great gods, Brahma and Vishnu, are arguing, and they're the forces of their play just threaten to destroy the universe herself. It's just terrifying, this moment. And so Shiva manifests as this infinite column of light and invites Brahma and Vishnu to find the beginning or the end of his life. And Brahma becomes his vehicle, his swan, and starts flying into the heaven for yugas, for eternity, searching for the source of light. And Vishnu becomes one of his incarnations, one of his vehicles, the boar, Vira, I believe. I'm probably pronouncing it all wrong. And starts burrowing into the earth. And again, for thousands of years, for eons, for yugas, for hundreds of thousands of years, goes burrowing into the earth, searching for the beginning. Brahma finally sees a flower falling from the infinite and says to this flower, come and lie and testify that I actually found the beginning of this light. And somehow the flower agrees to do that. Of course, Shiva catches Brahma in that lie, and that's why Brahma is never worshipped. There are only 2 temples in all of India where Brahma is worshipped. And Vishnu and Brahma bow to Shiva. Well, Arunachala is this column of light, this holy hill at the center of Tiruvannamalai is this column of light. Arunachala is Shiva. The archaeologists tell us that it's ancient. It's some of the oldest earth on earth. It dates back to even before Gondwana, before the continents separated. And in any case, it's a place of great power, great Shakti, and we're so fortunate to do our class in this really beautiful new a retreat center a few miles out of town, really quiet generally. And so we'll be doing this 18-day class where we do 4 days of class, then 2 days for tourism and practice, another 4 days of class where you'll be experiencing 4 different, learning how to facilitate 4 different powerful energy balancing sessions. And then in the last 4 days, we'll be doing this somatic emotional clearing, which blends transpersonal psychology and somatic psychology. In the last 40 years, last 50 years, there's been a dramatic breakthrough in psychology, and if it's in its efficacy, in which the work of Dr. Eugene Gendlin demonstrated that when we were fully present in our bodies, we are able to really clear the past. And so body workers who support somatic work, in which we support people not in reliving the past in any way, not in any kind of emotionally centered work, but work in which we simply facilitate that it's safe to be fully present in the body, are able to do dramatic work of soul retrieval, are able to do powerful, powerful work of clearing and releasing the past. And in this work, we restructure, we reframe the personal subconscious to give you tools to have a conscious and nourishing relationship with a vulnerable part of your being. So this is a polarity therapy training based on Dr. Randall Stone's profound principles, but also a principle that I'm the founder of Heartwood Institute, which was a school of natural healing, probably one of the leading schools of natural healing in the world, where for close to 40 years we explored taking responsibility for high-level wellness and explored the resources of the human potential movement. So what you'll be getting in this program is the fruit of some 40 years of seeking and experiencing moving beyond the shadow, moving beyond the demons, moving beyond the darkness into the light. So it's truly my privilege to have had this Dharma, to be living this life, and to be able to share these techniques for high-level wellness, for optimum wellness, for healing and clearing the past, and cultivating your own divinity.